Welcome everyone, Taylor Darling here, and today I'm going to be showing off my Reach Space Colony Alpha mechanics that I designed. Forgive the textures, I've been playing around with those. They're not too terrible, but they could be better. I'm just trying to get what I can figured out for those. But let's get started. Let's take a look at the HUD first. Let's take a look at the HUD. So we have designer for the HUD. Very rudimentary HUD. We have our text block that features our timer, our health bar, and all of our objectives listed right at the start of the game. So right when you boot up the game, that will display to the player's screen. And then we have all the text that gets the number of enemies, number of landmines hit, number of dog tags collected, and the health. Sorry, my computer's running out of power. Pardon me. All right, so we've got this set up for the health, and that's basically it for that. Got the fuel bar widget, which we didn't end up using a fuel bar. So when I say we, I mean me. But what we did is we just had it so we display this little icon here that shows you've collected the jetpack, which we're going to move into the jetpack. Here's the code for the overlap event on the jetpack pickup. Get the player pawn. If the player pawn hits it, you create the fuel bar widget, add it to viewport, and set the jump max hold time to the designated time there, which is 0.76 seconds. I believe this is just to move the jetpack pickup to the origin point, because destroying it will cause a bunch of errors that we don't want. And then we set jetpack collected to true, and at begin play, we get all our character references, create the end game widget so that we have a reference to that, and then we set this to false. Actually, I think I ended up doing away with this. Let's move on to the dog tags. Dog tags are just a pickup that I implemented some health gain into, but it also acts as a sort of collectible system within the level. So we have the on component begin overlap for the sphere collision on the dog tags. We get the player character. So we had a I keep saying we had an issue where got the player character to pick up the dog tag, but we also had the enemies picking up the dog tags. So I didn't want that. Ended up checking to see if the person walking over the dog tag was the player character and not the enemy characters. And if that was true, we get a variable within the character named number of dog tags. We increment that. We set the number of dog tags from the first person player, place sound at location, destroy the dog tag actor, and then set number of dog tags collected function at the end, which is set right here in a custom event. Get the first person character, get their health, add the amount of health gain here in the blueprint. And if it's less than or equal to 100, we want them to gain health, because we don't want them to gain health if we're greater than or equal to 100. That'd be a little OP. Now we're going to go into the enemy blueprint, which was one of my favorite things to work on. So we got the event begin play, which we're going to come back to. We got the random roam, which is the AI for the enemy to get it to move. So we had to copy the third person character template, and so we could get that character movement. And then I added a pawn sensing component to get an idea of where the player character is. So we set the random roam event here, get an AI move to node, set the pawn to self, and we get the destination, and then we get random reachable point radius, which basically, if you set nav mesh bounds on the ground that your player can walk on, the enemy AI will just try to find a random point within the radius you set. So I set my random radius to 300 from the AI's location, and then we call random roam on success, which factors back into here. On begin play, we start random roam, and we get a reference to the first person character. Then we have the pawn sensing stuff. We have a sequence. We see the player, and we start following the player, right? And then after we stop seeing the player, which is the retriggerable delay, after a second of not seeing it, we have the random roam trigger again. Then we have the damage code. So it has its own collision volume that if it hits the player pawn, it will call this attack function here, which is set down here, get their health, get the damage amount here in the enemy blueprint, subtract the damage from the player's health, set the health, and if it's less than or equal to 0, we kill the player. And then this is for the enemy death, which we have set in the projectile. Destroy actor, set the number of enemies up by 1, and there we have it. And those are the mechanics that I have worked on this month. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.